And coming on, and Katie. All right. All right, so I see Brian's out there and Katie, welcome. All right, so I think the only one that we would be expecting is Chris Corpola. So I think our core group is probably all here ready to go.
Okay, and so as you guys can see, I'm working from home while also managing this dude today, and he's a little bit squirrely. So Sarah's going to kind of lead the meeting, and just in the event that I have to, keep him content here. So I'll turn it over to Sarah.
All right, thank you. Well, let's call the meeting to order. This is the Dunn County Criminal Justice Collaboration Council's Communications Work Group. Roll call, we've got Chair Brenna Jasper. We've got with MPD, we also have Brian Hagan with Menominee Police Department. We've got Katie Shalley, Clerk of Courts. I'm Sarah Benedict, Dunn County Criminal Justice Coordinator, and we have Krista Vind, our IT specialist. All right, moving on to number 3, approval of the minutes of our last meeting on October 19th. If you've had a chance to review those, if I could get a first and a second.
I'll approve them.
122, I just got the phone.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any changes, corrections, or discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Number 4, for staff report, we did have our last quarterly CJCC meeting last week. So Chris Corpola will move from vice chair to chair come January of our CJCC. And then District Attorney Andrea Nodoff was elected to be our vice chair. So come 2021, she'll be vice chair. So it's like a 2-year term of chair and vice chair, and then the vice chair becomes chair. So we'll have some leadership changes in 2021, which is hard to believe it's just around the corner, actually. We do have another executive meeting later on this month, and we will be looking at if there's any chair positions we want to make any changes for the different work groups. So I appreciate everyone's participation in our work groups, and certainly the leadership of our chairs to keep it all moving ahead. That is all I have for staff report, unless there's any questions. Okay. Oh, I guess I'll just add that we did present our recidivism project findings to the CJCC, and there generated a good discussion and some follow-up questions. So that was helpful. And then we're going to be talking a little bit down the agenda on the written report for that recidivism project that's we hope to publish yet this year. So that's it for staff report. All right, we're going to move on to the next item. It is the report out on the OWI forum. So last Tuesday, we did have the virtual community forum that we highlighted, were discussed OWIs, operating while intoxicated. We did have the panelists. We had law enforcement, we had the district attorney, we had Judge Peterson and Chris Corpola really talk about the implications of OWI to the individual and our community as a whole. So that was an hour-long session that we ran and really stuck to that 1 hour. We didn't go over and it wasn't under either. But we're hoping to maybe share some of the statistics that Brenna and maybe Krista got on the backside. That was a Facebook Live event. So I'm just going to stop talking and let either Brenna or Krista kind of chime in on this.
Brenna, if you want to go ahead.
Oh, Brenna, you're muted.
Yeah, sure. So 1 second, I have a dog that's gonna bark in just 2 seconds here, but the county video, it looks like had about 2.2 thousand views, and it's had a little bit of time to kind of percolate. Going to the MPD post, so what we did is we had it on Zoom, but only the panelists had the link. And so then from that Zoom, we streamed live to the county page where it was shared then to the PD page and the sheriff's office page. So people were able to watch it live on the different pages. And so on the PD side of things, it looked like it had a reach of 1,314 and 200 engagements. So what that means is that 1,000 people saw it, but 200 people actually clicked into the live from our page and interacted with the post in some way. So that's really cool and really promising. We did have a variety of questions and comments that came in. Most, support, just a few things here and there. And watching it live, we had on average probably 30 to 40 people watching it live at any given point. I was kind of trying to keep track of how the numbers kind of ebbed and flowed, and they really stayed consistent until probably the last 10 minutes or so when people kind of dropped off as we were addressing the question that came in or questions that were submitted. So all in all, really good, especially we played around with the time frame a little bit. We did it from 6 to 7, which is sort of atypical, but we wanted to just try and reach people when they might be more likely to sit and tune in for a little bit. And then with it being live on Facebook, there's always the added bonus of people can watch it later, which is cool. So all in all, I would say a big success. There were a lot of really great points made by the panelists. And then my dad had actually been tuning in live. And so he mentioned to me afterwards and that, he kind of went in expecting it to be a little bit more of like a hard and fast, like don't drink and drive kind of thing. Well, that was definitely part of the message. What he got was like, there are all these resources and options for you to not do that because, that's the safe and healthy thing to do, which is really impressive because I think that was our goal, like in getting that message out. And I certainly didn't prompt him to come to that conclusion. So I think it was a success just on all fronts so far. That's me personally.
Krista, anything that you'd like to add from your side?
No, she covered it. Like our estimated reach was 2.3 thousand. Total minutes viewed were 3,447. Yeah, so that's about it. She covered most of it.
Great. And yeah, I think all of our panelists did a really nice job kind of not talking too much. That was one thing that we were just mindful of, that we had, opportunity for all of our panelists to chime in and be heard, to keep it, variety and to provide that all around information. So I think the panelists were happy with the outcome, and it's great to know that we had all those views. I did update the CJCC last week on this, and Judge Peterson commented, could you imagine if we had, at that time we had some preliminary numbers where, over 1,000 had watched it. Could you imagine if we had all those people in a room? You know, that would be phenomenal. We can't do that, obviously, but I think this shows, even though last year, you know, we did in-person and virtual forums, and both in-person sessions were much smaller group of people. But when, you know, if you visualize all these people in a room, I mean, we really did reach a lot of people, and hopefully that information got out there. And, you know, that I agree. I think we got our message out there as well. So I would say, yeah, it's a success for 2020. Any other comments that folks have on the forum, if you've watched it, or if you have questions if you didn't watch it? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, that was one of our major goals for the year. So, you know, I think it's fantastic that we were able to accomplish this, and it was successful. So very good. Thank you for everybody that participated and contributed, because that was, I was a little bit worried about that one, but it went really well. Brenna's on the run. All right. Let's go to the next item. Number 6, we've got our poster distribution plan. So part of the OWI forum was to really, you know, pair that with our poster distribution and the website, the Make the Safe Choice website, which is live out there on the county's webpage. So we did reference that. We encouraged people to check out that webpage, and then we kind of gave them heads up that you'll start to see some of this information and posters out in the community. We created a shared Google document based on a list of alcohol establishments that were provided by our folks at Arbor Place. So that link was on our meeting packet. And Brenna's probably not there right this second, but just initially talking with Brenna, we discussed maybe coming up with a plan where we can maybe carve up that list of establishments and start to get those posters out there. Looks like we got Chris Corpola joining us. So I'm going to admit her.
Just real quick, if you're talking about the posters, which, sorry, by the way, somebody rang our doorbell for a package delivery and my dog went nuts and scared me half to death. I went and I saw that document that you had shared, and I highlighted in green the downtown ones that I either at some point can get out myself, or I can use, I'm on the board of directors for the downtown Main Street organization, so I can always employ their assistance as well. So those ones that are high, and I updated a few too, so like the Cafe, a few places have gone out of business or changed. Like Gin Mill is now there, that kind of thing. Not in the Cafe, elsewhere. But so I tried to update the ones that I caught, but if other people see something and it needs changing, should feel free and make those changes too, because I know I'm probably missing some things. So.
Right. Some of the list was a couple of years old, right? So any newer establishments might not be on there. And we could have also establishments that are on there that are no longer in business too. Brenda, should I pull up that list for us to look at as a group?
Yeah, I think it's worth discussion, being that we do want to, it's going to be too expensive to mail many of them. So some of them will have to be dropped off. And in trying to limit contacts with COVID, just what ones should we kind of prioritize versus what ones can wait, I think we should discuss.
All right, let me pull it up here. Oh, it's probably not a doc, but a sheet. Sorry. So it's a shared Google sheet. And there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen now that I got it pulled up here. All right. Okay, so yeah, so we can see where you highlighted the places in green. Okay. And those are the Menominee in town areas, right? Okay.
Yep, those are downtown specific. So
Okay.
or where I am familiar with how we can distribute those safely.
Okay.
How many, how big are they?
Let me pull one up for you. So it's like a,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
They'd have to go in tubes in order to mail them.
right. Yep. But we do have, I don't know if you can see, where's my camera, but we do
There you
have
go. Yep.
stickers on all of them. So those QR codes that would link back to our website. And then we've got Rita, our assistant, going to keep that list up to date. And we do have a kind of a note out there that if anybody wants to be added to the list for the safe ride home, that we'd be happy to do that. So we can be as inclusive as possible with those. As far as kind of breaking this down, so Brenna, do you want to take the lead with the highlight, the green ones then?
Yep, green I can just do. We don't have to worry about. And being as they're all kind of downtown establishments, I do think those ones might be worth putting on the priority.
Right. How many would you like, or I guess I can count this up too and kind of see, do you want, we've got two different posters, right? So we've got we got the drink menu, which I just showed you, and then we've got the make the safe choice posters as well. And we probably have twice as many. I think what we anticipated was 2 of the menu ones and 1 of the safe ride home per establishment. I think that's what we printed anyways. So should we keep with that, Brenna? Like that'd be 2 of one and 1 of the other per establishment? Okay. So I can bundle those and drop them off for you to pick up. So is anybody at the front desk where I could leave something with them, or we can arrange that, you and I, some other time that'll work for you. But yeah, I agree that the ones in town would be a good priority to start with that. Okay. Is anybody else interested in distributing some posters? So I think, Brenna, if you take the bulk of those, I think, I don't want to go to Shooters, but I will if I have to, I guess.
I'm not going to Shooters. That whole, sorry if I offend anyone by saying this, but that whole little development there gives me the willies.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's probably a group that could benefit from getting that information out there, And
we could just staple a few condoms to it too, so they can just take those when they go.
But I think what I could do is just really take an afternoon and that the roads are clear and just start dishing them out. At least a couple of places at each, in each little town, I think would be nice to get that word out there. Because we don't want to be just Menominee centric, even though that's the majority of where our establishments are. But I think, some of and I think it's just kind of walking in and asking, introducing ourselves and asking them if they'd be willing to put the information out there. But
So,
yeah.
I mean, I think some of them, like some have questionable, I guess I don't want to make an assumption or not make an assumption, but I mean, a couple of them, I was just thinking, I just saw like, for instance, like the Vino Cappuccino place, like that that's probably not ever going to be a high priority of a place.
But I think part of it is it, because I think it's just getting our
That's
name,
true.
our recognition out there that,
That's
hey,
true.
we exist and we're here to help. And, that could be maybe a different clientele than we'd see at shooters.
Yep.
But I think certainly some folks that would appreciate getting the information out there and
That's true.
maybe, share it. But yeah, right. As far as the priority area, maybe that wouldn't be as high on the priority list.
Yeah.
And then some of these might not even be in, up and running right now. Like I'm thinking of the campground.
Sure.
So I think, yeah, end game, the goal is to have it disperse as widely as we can, but just for the purposes of now with COVID numbers being so high, I think we do need to figure out just which places we're going to actively work towards getting this distributed out to, and then what ones can wait. And probably Vino Cappuccino is one of those. Actually, I think they might be seasonal.
Yeah.
So, or like something in that capacity. So I think that's one, and there are probably several others that we could wait on that would be okay. Same with, your grocery stores, things like that. But I do think like your liquor stores, Divine Liquor, your more independent ones might be worth looking at, because there's been such an increase in off-site sales. That might be worth checking out.
Okay.
Hey, Sarah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, if you were looking to drop some posters off for Brenna this week, I'm here Monday through Thursday.
Okay.
The front office is closed, but if you can give me an approximate time of what time you might be coming, I can let them know. So if you just pound on the door, either I or somebody can just step out and grab them.
Okay. Will you be there about 3:00 today?
I can't guarantee that, but if you think you're going to get here at about that time, I'll make sure that Becky up front knows.
Okay. I'll give you a call later on, but I can get them over there today just so you guys have them.
Okay.
But I'll make contact with you. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good.
So I'm certainly willing to go to take some out as well. I mean, I can hit up whatever, either in town or out of town. I can take a ride too.
Okay. Maybe what I can do, we'll have put a code on here, but we'll have Brenna do the green ones, and then maybe Chris, I'll look at what else is kind of close to town since you live in town.
I mean, like I say, I don't mind. Just give me a bunch of them to go. It doesn't matter. I can take a ride. Nothing's that far away.
Okay. Okay, great.
I don't have a life, so it's okay.
It's a good way to see the county and see what's out there. Great. Thank you, Chris. All right. And then I can drop some posters off for you as well, so you have them and they can do it at your convenience. Okay. And then I can do some as well. And
yeah, let's just pick away at it.
Yep. Good. And right now, I think now that the message is out, kind of a fresh beginning, I guess, with these posters that have been sitting here for a year, we're ready to go and get them out there. So great.
Katie said she'll take some too.
Awesome. Okay, so will I'll just code this probably and give us a color, and then that'll be what kind of your distribution plan. So
perfect.
Try to stop the share here. There we go. Okay, great. So I will try to get those in everyone's hands as soon as possible, or at least this week, so we can just start it and get it done.
So our goal, do we have a timeline goal? I mean, I know obviously as soon as possible, but I do better if you just tell me, get this done by, figure out a date.
Do we want to say by the end of the month, or that gives a couple of weeks? And
Yeah, that would work.
but I think ultimately we just want to keep sending them out until we don't have any left.
Right.
So,
Right.
And we might not get the whole county covered, but so maybe it's even the end of the year before we get everybody covered. But I think if we kind of divide and conquer, I think we can actually get them out there within the next couple of weeks. Brenna, is that okay?
Yep, that sounds good. Sorry, we're over here with the Roomba because that's the latest fascination. Yeah, that sounds good. I do. So, and why I'm actually here without the normal help I would have working from home is because I'm like pseudo quarantining. So my stuff, so I wasn't exposed, but one of his caregivers was. So the ones that I had signed up on really depend on what her test results will be. So that might be a December thing for like the downtown places just to be safe. But yeah, I think end of the year for end game, but just getting them out as soon as we can is probably the best course. Because this was supposed to be a New Year's Eve kind of deal anyway. From last year, that was our thought. Not that people should be going out doing crazy things on New Year's Eve, but all the same, that's kind of the holidays anyway. So so that's my 2 cents with that.
Mom, let me have the Roomba.
It is the weirdest obsession I've ever seen. He plays, he rolls right over to it. It's his favorite thing. All these toys doesn't care about. It's the Roomba.
Seems legit.
All right. Anything else on the poster plan? All right. Okay. Next item is number 7, Recidivism Project Companion Document. So I'm going to share my screen again. So this is something that I have in draft form. So as mentioned, the data work group has been working on this project for the good part of the year as far as really developing the methodology to evaluate our program recidivism measures. We defined what recidivism is. We populated a Google spreadsheet across the different agencies with program participants, program referrals, and then we put all sorts of different data points for each person that's in the program. And then we did recidivism checks in our CCAP, the Wisconsin Circuit Court access system, for all the program participants that completed. So we started with the completed group. We really looked at 1 year, 3 year, 5 year post-program. And that was from the date that they were discharged from the different programs. I'm going to share my screen here. Here we go. So the, I already put it away, but so I at the CJCC meeting last week, I did update on kind of that executive summary type major overview. So we only really had a couple of minutes, but really tried to highlight, what our findings were. And these were just based on, like I said, the ones that got through the program. Ultimately, we do want to look at those that were referred and not started as a comparison group, and then look at those that didn't complete as the control group. So this is one of the annual goals of our data work group, and it's something that we're going to continue to do each year when we're looking at the recidivism. But now that we've got kind of the names in there on the spreadsheet, we're really able to just add to it and kind of look at the recidivism as we reach those points. But then can start to look at those other groups too. So those things will be coming, down the road. The data work group has a more work to do on those comparison groups and the control group. So this report really just covers those that completed the program. So what I didn't want to I'm going to share my screen with another document that we were kind of going off of here. Hold on. So this really, it'll be kind of like the appendix of the report, but this, I don't know if you guys see it or not. Let me do share and make sure you can see what I'm looking at here, the chart. So, I guess overall, just so you guys know that I think the program recidivism measures were pretty impressive across the board with all the different programs. We have the pre-charge diversion really is that first time offender program, sort of those nuisance type crimes, certainly crimes, they could be charged as an ordinance or a criminal misdemeanor, but tend to be low level type crimes. And then we worked our way up to the top program. So that's that longer term treatment program if there's an underlying substance use disorder. And then we evaluated treatment court, which is that highest risk, highest need population. Certainly treatment is a big component of that program. So those were the three programs that we were able to have enough participants post-program to look at recidivism. We still have the reentry program, the domestic violence program, that we don't have enough graduates that are 1 year, 3 year, 5 year post-program to evaluate. So those will come in time as well, because this is kind of an ongoing project. So we've got 3 different programs, 3 different risk groups, and 3 different really crime category groups as well. So these things, I think it's cautious to say that, we don't want to say that, pre-charge is better than treatment court because there's more people that get through it. They're really a different, basket of fruit when we're looking at these different programs. So I didn't want to just throw this out there and say, for the masses to kind of draw their own conclusions. So I really wanted to have a written companion document that can help really illustrate what the numbers are showing here. And then some of the other program benefits that people get from participating or our community gets from people participating in these. So, and some of those can be, the harm reduction side, they're employed, they're, paying taxes, taking care of their kids, some of those benefits other than just a new criminal charge or a new criminal conviction. So I kind of see this as being the kind of appendix document to the written document. But I've started to form it up in, and I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to share another, go back to that original one. Here we go. So, in my mind, I thought, oh, this will be like 5 pages or less, right? We want it to be that people actually read it. I've got the state TAD report here and it's like, 100 pages and, who's going to read this, right? You'll read the executive summary and kind of get the details, but it's too big. So part of my goal was to kind of keep it smaller, but just as I've kind of formed up some of our kind of the categories, and this is where I want the feedback as far as what we should add, what we should take away, or how this can be presented in a way that we're kind of trying to not overwhelm people with too much information, because we want them to read it, right? So feel free to jump in as I kind of walk through this. So we just have a title page, executive summary. So I think it's important to have some sort of executive summary. I mean, the whole document itself could be an executive summary if it's short enough. But just kind of some of the highlights. But this is when I'm like, am I being repetitive? So it's a question I'm asking you guys for some feedback. But basically, kind of took some of the bullet points from the presentation to be part of our executive summary. So it's just really the meat of the report. So kind of the quick and dirty of the report overall by different programs is what I have right now for the executive summary. This stuff will be repeated later on. So that's the part that I'm wondering if it makes sense to have an executive summary on this, or if I should just kind of just take this whole report and envision it as an executive summary. But other than the executive summary, got introduction. So really the why we're doing this. So this was a goal that was set out by our CJCC, the work of our data work group, communications work group. And then really what we set out to do. So as I mentioned, this is step 1 of those that completed the program. The step 2 would be those that were referred but did not participate. And then the step 3 would be those that actually, didn't complete the program. And we want to look what happened to them in comparison, how many arrests, did they come back into the criminal justice system? Because the intent is to think that if somebody got a dose of treatment, that they would have different outcomes than those that didn't get the dose of the treatment program. So those are some comparisons that we'll look to make in 2021 with our data work group. So introduction. Next part is methodology, really kind of describing how we went about doing this project, how we define recidivism. So this is really this is what we formed up early on with our spreadsheet to make sure we were all on the same page doing the same kind of measurements. But the intent was to look through multiple lenses of in program, out of program. We want to look at new charges, new convictions at that 1 year, 3 year, 5 year post program. So that was kind of what we wanted to do. The methodology is how we went about doing that. So it was just kind of really step by step as far as the way we wanted to do it. And then program overviews. So of the 3 programs that we have, it's going to really provide the description that we have in our data. It'd be the Smashboard companion document. So we already kind of have program descriptions that were written by the program coordinators, kind of describing their program. So it'll be like a paragraph of each. Because again, we've got different risk populations here, different levels of charges. So I think it's important to kind of spell that out. So we don't have the tendency to compare the programs because they're different baskets. The recidivism analysis, essentially, this is where I get to, it's a lot of the same as what's in the executive summary. So that's why I'm wondering if we want to just maybe omit the executive summary and put this in the back, or really synthesize the executive summary where it's not all the nitty gritty, but it's kind of some of the major takeaways from the program. And then also comparison. So even though this is step 1, we want some sort of comparison if we can. So with treatment court, there's a lot more research that's already done out there as far as what can be expected to come of a successful program. With our diversion programs, there's not as much comparison out there. And that was some of the questions and the conversation that we had at the CJCC meeting was really, you know, this is all fine and dandy, but what are we comparing it to, you know? And there, you know, so I think we have to have some sort of measure. So that's where it's going to be a little bit harder to find those exact measures when we're looking at the diversion programs. But I was going to connect with Chippewa and Eau Claire. I know they have had some. Eau Claire has a data analyst, so I know that they have produced some reports in the past, like with their pre-charge diversion program, and have some outcomes. So I was going to try to get together some comparisons that we might have in the state versus, you know, something else out there. But treatment courts are much more standardized programs. There's, you know, there are standards that programs need to adhere to. It's much more diffuse when we're looking at the diversion programs overall. The state is working on standards, but that's in draft form right now. So it's just harder to have a comparison because we're not all doing it the same way. Like treatment courts are typically run the same way to meet the standards. So the comparisons are going to be a little bit different. And then I was going to take some information from the state TAD report on the cost benefit analysis. And I did share some of that with our CJCC. So the state really found that with the TAD grant dollars that are out there, that they had a cost savings for every dollar spent. A treatment court saved $4.17 and a diversion program saved $8.68. So I was going to lean on some of the work that was done in the state TAD report as far as those cost benefit analysis. As many of you might recall, and Chris, when you led our data work group, we spent a significant amount of time looking at that cost benefit and really tried to kind of quantify the amount of time we spend with people, and then try to put a dollar amount on that. And that was helpful, but I think that is a different kind of comparison what we need for this. But we did really attach figures as a case moves, you know, from law enforcement, if they go to jail to get booked, and then the case is referred to the DA's office. So we really put dollar amounts with all of those. And we know that if people off-ramp our criminal justice system earlier on, they're going to have less touch points all the way through. So the savings is, as far as the system is concerned, we do have more savings with those that would be deferred early. The earlier the deferral, the greater dollar savings it really produces. But once we get into the treatment court, and that was also some of the questions in the feedback, you know, wanting to know more about, and this is probably, you know, more research that the data work group's going to have to do moving ahead, but, you know, to get more of that cost benefit, you know, how much does a program cost? How many people do we run through? What are some of the costs for the program? Anyways, I've got the cost benefit analysis on here. And then I do want to make sure that any references that we're listing, like the TAD report, that we actually annotate those in here so folks can look at more information if needed. So, you know, as I mentioned, just with some of this basic stuff not being filled out, we're already at 5 pages. So I'm going to stop talking here and kind of open up the discussion for some feedback on, you know, what would be helpful in this and what we should take out or reconfigure.
Well, my first thought is you don't have to repeat anything that's already in the document. You know? So, I mean, if you have the document that spells out your, all of like the data, then my thought would be you'd want your companion document to say whatever, section A or whatever the name of the section is or whatever. And then just kind of speak to that, but I don't think you have to restate it.
Okay.
That would diminish that significantly.
Okay. Okay, good. So you're saying not even really, then we wouldn't even need an executive summary. It's just really looking at that other document and then more defining it.
Well, no, I mean, I think that you could here, but if you go, so scroll up just a little bit more. So like here, oh yeah, the executive summary. So here you sort of restate like all of the pieces of what's already in that other document. So, so can you scroll down now? Sorry.
Yep.
So then I think you really could start with like the methodology or kind of the description / maybe a little bit of history or a little bit of definition to what that is. If somebody didn't know what a pre-charge diversion program was.
Right. Yep. To define that. Yep.
To define that. And then, yeah, I'd probably do the program overviews first.
Okay. Because
I might not care to read farther than the program overviews if I didn't think it applied to me.
Okay.
But then, and then maybe the methodology of how you came up with the numbers. Yeah, you're right. I think the executive summary could just be the reference, is the reference back.
Okay.
I liked the idea too of checking in with Eau Claire and Chippewa about their kind of measurement and how that works. Sorry, he's happy now.
Screams of joy.
So it's hard sometimes when that data is more qualitative rather than quantitative. But if they found a way to do it, then I think that we should totally use it if we can.
Okay. Yeah, and I haven't referenced that one yet. So, okay. Other thoughts that folks have? And I realize I didn't give you guys much time to even look at this, and my description probably wasn't the most clear because it's still swirling.
What I would say about potentially about an executive summary is what do we want people to know?
Well, I just know people don't read things. They
right,
want,
exactly.
They
right.
want
So
a little spoonful.
Right. So what is the spoonful of what we want to tell them?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that the programs are effective based on, but that's more of my opinion, isn't it?
Well, but I think that
because when
I go to an executive summary, I even ignore like the first 3 paragraphs of background, and then I skip to the last paragraph that tells me what do I want, what do I need to know? Yeah.
So it's what is it that we need to know? And I think what we need to know is that these programs are highly effective.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I always think about when we've talked about this before, I think about one of the messages is that you are going to see decreasing levels of completion and increasing levels of recidivism as you move through the programs.
Yeah.
But that's to be expected because the pre-charge serves a very different population than the treatment court.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that if you can help people to do a mind shift of, I like what's been done with the way that it's really actually stated almost in the affirmative first, like 93, I don't know if you scroll up. Yeah, just pick any of them. It doesn't really matter. So essentially 92% of the program graduates had no charges. To me, that's a way more compelling number than 8% of them recidivated, recidivated or whatever.
Yep.
So I think that if you can help people, if we can, not you personally, if we can think about how to help people to see that kind of what you've said all along, Sarah, 92% of those people didn't touch the system again. So they didn't use dispatch time. We don't have to cost it out to say they didn't use dispatch time. They didn't use law enforcement response. Well, they might have for pre-charge, they would have, sorry. But they didn't use whatever the pieces are behind that, and then but even at the treatment court level, that I still think that 50, it's 40, what's the lowest one? 43% had new charges. So 57% of the worst, now, I don't know, you wouldn't say it this way, but the worst of the worst in many regards. I mean, I know that there's comment, and I know Andrea's made the comment about, the disappointment of seeing people come back through. But the practical reality of is that more than 50% of them didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that gets lost in the ones that did.
Right.
So when you say some of our most high risk offenders, both in terms of risk of recidivism, as well as risk of reoffending, as well as risk to the community, we didn't see again over the next 5 years. That's to me, that's what I would want to know.
Yeah. So really that success rate.
Yep.
Okay, that's good.
And what that means, because for that group, we don't have to cost it out to say that's a group that didn't touch dispatch, didn't touch an investigator, didn't touch a jail staff, didn't touch, all of those pieces of the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and I was kind of surprised by some of the feedback, even on the pre-charge diversion program, on the get tough on crime folks, really kind of not, I think the impact of that, these folks didn't come back, was lost, and it was, why didn't we charge them to begin with? So, this stuff gets a little bit frustrating at times, because we want to show that we're effective, but then we get back to the question of why are we doing this to begin with? So I think some sort of speaking to that too, of why we're doing this, just knowing that our criminal justice system can't absorb every case that comes our way, that really, and we spoke to some of these things, but by, resolving some of these lower level cases, that allows that time and resource to be put towards those higher risk, more dangerous cases to our community. And I think that's important too, that we kind of relay, and maybe that's part of the program description of why we even have some of these programs to begin with, because I was just a little surprised by some of the questions and commentary. It wasn't even about the effectiveness of these, but it was about, well, why are we doing these things to begin with? If we're going to be tough on crime. And I don't know, I thought we were a step or two beyond that, but that just lets me know that as a council, we're still all over the board as far as what we think about these programs, and whether we should have them or not, versus just have a jail and business as usual. So I think we still have a lot more kind of development to do to get everybody more on the same page.
I don't disagree, but I honestly didn't hear the discussion that way.
Okay.
I heard it more from a standpoint of, it's always like, because when I read data, I think about it the same way. As compared to what?
Yep.
As to compared to doing nothing, like what is that? What is, because if you say, well, I don't, whatever, older middle-aged women who run are 50% healthier, then what? Than people who don't, then whatever. And so, I mean, in my mind, that I saw that more. And I think speaking to, because I thought a lot about some of the comments on the pre-charge diversion case, and like, that is a really hard group to have a control group for. Because what is your control group? The general population? So we might want to chew on that a little bit in our data group about, I think once you get to top and you get to treatment court, it's easy for us to think about what some other comparisons we can do to say, this might not be perfect, but we're, at least this is this group as compared to this group. Yeah. But I think on the pre-charge diversion group, what is the control group? I don't know. So I would have to kind of think through that. But I heard that conversation more about the as compared to what.
Okay.
For the pre-charge program, I struggle too. I kind of agree. I know like the old nomenclature is just give them a forfeiture ordinance and be done with it, because it would be easier and faster. I think the ploy in that program, and I don't know all the history on it, is just that they don't have the record on their case. Because I'm even seeing that if they enter the pre-charge now and they're not successful, we're just amending it to a forfeiture. And then the case is on the record for 5 years. It's non-criminal. It's just like a speeding ticket, nothing too bad. But maybe our control group would be to look at the cases that don't get the pre-charge, like the forfeiture levels,
yep.
That possession of THC, to see if they come back again, if they have repeat, because that would be similar to kind of what they're getting.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
So I don't disagree that I think that there's constant work to be done to say, why do we do this and what's the benefit? Especially as it seems as if on the national level, the dialogue or the rhetoric is turning to getting tough on crime. The pendulum seems to be making a swing, and maybe that will or won't be the case with the new president. I don't, that might help that or not, I don't really know, but I think that there's always we can always use an opportunity for education.
And I think when I'm working with our analytics and statistics, one of the things that sticks out to me is that I forget what training it was in, but it was a really good point in that, you can make numbers out to fit whatever narrative you want. So if you're the one providing those numbers and it's for a specific reason, we should be giving guidance on how to interpret it, what it means, what we're comparing it to, etc. So I think that is a really good thing to move towards doing. It is challenging with some of these things where it's like, well, how do you, if people don't recidivate, if they don't commit crime, how do you communicate that, or how do you quantify that, or but I think it is a good discussion to have, and not saying that any programs aren't effective. It's just, people don't know what they don't know, and so that's where we come in, I suppose.
Right. Yep.
All right, run, guys, because I have to do an interview at noon, so.
I'm going to say I took a lot of good notes, so thank you for the feedback, and I'll continue to work on this and try to keep it short, but I'll need folks to review it again at some point and give me some more feedback until it's ready to ship out. All right, so let's see, our last thing on the list, well, not necessarily last, but the coordinated PR messaging and calendar. So I can share my screen quickly to show what we've got. So I did send this out. It had an old date on it from September, so I did updated that. But the one I did ship out already had the same information. So For October, we pretty much accomplished everything that we had set out to do there. And then now that we're in November, this is what we've got on the list, and then December. So we've got that Child Safety Protection Month. So that was related to the car seat safety. And then Homelessness Awareness Week, and National Hunger. So what we did last year, we asked Stepping Stones if they would have a message that we could generate and put out, and they never did produce anything, or maybe it got lost through the cracks of probably a busy time for them. But we could reach out to them again, possibly to get a little message. And then we can also, by doing that, we're able to promote our partners out there as well. And then Brenna, you've got the Foods for Fines also for November. Anything else we want to add to this? Okay. I guess just another thing, if we got some of those posters out, that would continue to promote our alcohol initiative piece, just where we're trying to educate and inform. But if anybody does have additional things, that seems like there's always new months of we're celebrating this or that or the other, but we can always add to it. And then I think between Brenna and I, we can cover these areas for November and December. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to stop sharing. And then our next item is to determine next steps. So I think we've talked about our distribution plan for the posters. So we'll get working on that. I'll continue to work on our report, the written companion report, and I'll need some more eyeballs on that before I fully publish it. And then as far as our next meeting, Brenna, you and I discussed possibly not meeting in December as a full group. You want to chime in here?
Yeah, we just kind of had thought, we've got the poster distribution as a big piece, and the other stuff could probably be handled electronically, especially with everybody getting really, it's getting a lot more things going virtual now, especially with the increase in numbers and things like that. Just one less meeting off on everybody's plate that we could handle any business we need to do via email is the thought.
Are folks okay with that, or do we want to schedule something for the calendar? Okay. All right. So I think we'll continue to I guess, just connect via email when we're ready to do so. And then at any point, if somebody wants to get a meeting together, we can always do that. But we'll plan, I guess, then reconvening as a group in January or early next year. The first CJCC meeting next year will be on the 14th of January. So we are kind of going to, start right away. So we'll this group has tended to meet sort of later on in the month, but we can either send out a doodle poll or get your feedback as far as scheduling our next meeting so we can get our core group here. All right, we're over time. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Apologies for the most distracting meeting ever. But thanks for, all your thoughts and all your help. And Sarah, thanks to Sarah for helping guide this as well.
Oh, you bet. You bet. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.